Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's ClaritySoft webinar. Today is Tuesday, October 26, 2021. I'm Susan Arnold, Implementation Specialist here at ClaritySoft, and our topic today is on calculated fields in ClaritySoft. Depending on the level of ClaritySoft that you have, you may or may not have access to the calculated fields custom field type. If you do not, then you can talk with your account rep and find out about how you can get those turned on for yourself. But today we're going to explore those calculated fields, and if you don't have them, it might give you some ideas on why you would like to do that. So first of all, we'll do a quick overview of calculated fields. Is the ability to create a calculation based upon other fields in a record. So one that's very popular or commonly asked for in the opportunities module is the ability to have a weighted amount based upon the percent probability and the amount field value. And so if you have calculated fields, you can do that. Others might be creating some sort of if statement that if this field is at this level or at this value, then, do this. If it's something else, do something else. So you can create some pretty complex formulas. The calculated fields work very much like Excel. There are a few little syntactical differences that you'll encounter, but for the most part, the logic of it is very much like Excel formulas. So it's pretty sophisticated in what you can do. The main thing you have to remember is that you cannot base a calculated field on another calculated field, okay? So sometimes that becomes kind of a think it through type of thing that you have to do. But other than that, it works very similarly to Excel, and you are able to create some pretty sophisticated formulas. So those of you that are good Excel users and strong in building formulas probably will be able to build some good calculated fields within ClaritySoft. Okay, so we're going to look at the different operators and functions that you have, and then creating calculated fields and using them. And down here, these are the samples that we are going to build today. And we'll also do at the end, create a workflow notification for this renewal date that will send either an email or create an activity for the owner of the record to say that this renewal is due within 30 days, or you could make it 60 days, whatever you want. So that person gets notified automatically by that workflow notification. And this doesn't necessarily work with a calculated field. It just works with a date field. So that's what we're going to do. So let me get to my ClaritySoft here. All right. So we're going to start in opportunities with the one that probably get the most requests for from folks. And in an opportunity record, you know that you have a sales stage, and with each sales stage, as you change the stage to another stage, your percent probability is tied to it. And you set this up in the settings. And you can set any percent probability with any stage that you create. You also could create your own custom probability field, which some people do. They don't like to tie it to the sales stage. They want to type in their own. And you still could create the calculation we're going to do by just using that custom field in the calculation. So what we want to do is create a calculated field that takes this percent probability and multiplies it times the amount field to give us the weighted amount. All right. So that's what we're going to do. And just like when adding any other custom field, number one, you have to be an admin user in the database. And then you go to the settings button. You go to customization, and then you go to the module and custom fields. And add your custom field. Give it a name. And then for your data type, when you click here, if you have calculated fields in your database, you will see it here. If you don't, then you won't see it here. And that's when you need to talk to your account rep. When you choose calculated field, you have different return types that you can receive for the formula that you're going to create. So you could have a return type of text, a number, a percent, currency, or a date time. So in this case, what we want is currency because our amount is in currency. So we're going to choose the currency field. And then you can choose to display either whole numbers or with your 2 decimal places. The rest of the amount, or the amount field itself, shows 2 decimal places. So to keep it consistent, I'm going to choose that. Okay. Then down here is where you're going to build your formula. And notice you do have a pretty big box here that you can build a long multi-line formula. So it doesn't have to be super simple. It can be pretty complex. So it's saying here the weighted amount in currency is equal to. And then what we want to do is build the formula in here. So the weighted amount is equal to the amount times the probability and then divided by 100. So we're going to come over here and we see some buttons here. The operator dropdown gives us all our mathematical operations and comparisons for logical comparisons. And then the function, this is a list of all the different functions. And there are some that are not here that are also available, but these are the functions because you can type them as well as pick them. And then lastly, we have our fields. So these are all the data fields that are in the opportunity module. And what I want is the amount field. Then I click here and I can either type the asterisk for the time sign, or I can come over here and pick it from my drop down. And then come back over here and I want now the probability field. These are in alphabetical order. And then I need to divide this by 100. So my slash is the divide, type 100. And that's all I need to do for this. And I scroll down and click on the save button. And it has now saved it, and I have created that field, and it tells me it's a calculated field. Once I've created a custom field, just like any other time I create a custom field, I have to go to my user interface template, go to the opportunity UI template, select the one that I want, and then I have weighted amount here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it between, I'm going to put it after the amount. So I've got the probability. And then I think just to make this so it's all kind of together, put the sales stage, maybe move this over here for now. So I've got the sales stage, the probability that goes with the sales stage, the amount, and then the weighted amount for my calculated field. All right. And then, as you know, if you've got other, I'm going to save this, but if you have other custom access profiles that you need to add this to those, then you can do the copy to and copy the layout to your other UI templates. Okay. So once you've done this, then you know, log out, log in. And when we go back to an opportunity, we now have this weighted amount field here. And it's already calculating this because I have the sales stage set to quotation, which is a probability of 75%. This is the total. This is the weighted amount, which is 75% times the total. If I change this, let's say we move one more step forward, it goes to 90%. Now notice that this did not automatically calculate as soon as I change this. This you need to be aware of. What you have to do is to get this to calculate while you have the record open is to come down and click the save button. And then you have to go up and click up in the browser window. It's very few times you ever click outside of ClaritySoft, and click the refresh button up there. And that will force a recalculation. Or you do a save and close and then reopen it. But it seems kind of, it's too many steps to do save and close and then reopen. So you save it, then refresh it, and your calculation will update itself. Okay. So that's how you do that. And then from that on, anytime you're changing your sales stage, your weighted amount will calculate for you. Now, what you can do too is out here in your list view, now that you have that data field, you can add it to your columns. So if I wanted this like that, I can have my weighted amount, and notice it has calculated it for all of my opportunities according to where they are. And if I also wanted to see what the probability was, just to be sure my calculation is correct, I can pull the probability over as well. So I can have the amount, probability, and the weighted amount. So then you can see your amount, your percent probability, and your weighted amount. And like I said, this is a very commonly asked question for people. Can they do this kind of thing? And yes, you can if you have the calculated fields. Okay. Another one that people might want to have in the opportunity is, what is your profit margin? If you work on cost, where in your products, you have entered, if you've put a price book in and you've entered a cost that calculates from here, okay, then you can create another calculation that would be your profit in dollars, and that would simply be the amount subtracting the cost. So you could add another calculated field here for that, and then you would know, what your profit is on any given opportunity. So once you have the calculated fields, you can start to think of different ways to use them in the system, and then just go for it, because you could create as many calculated fields as you need. Just remembering you can't base a second calculated field on a calculated field. Beyond that, you can do whatever you want, okay? All right, so that's one. Then the next one that is commonly asked about is having a contract date or a policy start date and then renewal date, where it calculates an automatic renewal date a year out or whatever. So that we're going to do, and we're going to do it in, usually it's done in the accounts module. It could be done perhaps in opportunities, but again, you just decide where does it work, where do you need it, and then go and build it. So we want to add a contract start date. So we can put that in, and then we want to add a calculation for the expiration date that is 1 year from the start date. So again, customization in settings, This time we're going to the accounts module, and we will call this could be contract start, subscription start, policy start, whatever works for your business. Okay. And then this is simply going to be a date time field because you're just going to type this in. All right. Then we're going to add it could be contract expire, contract renew, whatever. Now this one will be the calculated field, and we want to return a date. Then we come down here, and this one can be done two ways. You can do a real simple way where you could say it's equal to the contract date plus 366 days. Okay, that's very simple. Or there's one that will be maybe just a titch more accurate. And this one uses a function. I don't think it's in here. It's called date add, but it is in our help system, so you can put it in. So in this case, what we're going to do is we can type this in. So it's date add, then a left parenthesis, then you're going to type year, okay? And then what's the span? How many years? 1. So you're saying add to the date a year, 1 year, okay? And what do we add it to? We add it to the contract start date. And then we have to finish with our parenthesis, okay? So it's the function of adding it to a date, and the span of time you're adding is a year, and the quantity is 1, okay? And then what date are you adding it to? You could also do this where it's date add, it could be month. Maybe something expires in 6 months. So it would be month, comma 6. And then it would calculate adding 6 months to the contract start date. Okay. So it's logical once you understand it. Again, save it. And then we go to our user interface template. Oops, I went to the wrong one. Sorry about that. And now we want the contract start date. And I'm just going to shove it up here. And we want the contract renewal date. You can see I've got a couple versions of this in here. So anyway, click save. And I will mention this for all of you that have been with ClaritySoft for a while, you know that you can add your custom fields and immediately go to the user interface template. The custom fields are there and you can add them to your user interface template. However, the implementation team has discovered that sometimes those new fields are not visible in the UI template right after you've created them. So sometimes you do need to log out and log back in. So if you don't see your fields that you just created, just log out and log back in. It seems to be somewhat random, so we haven't pinned it down, but if you encounter that, just log out and then you should be fine. Okay, so now we've got our, oh, wait a minute, let me do one, hold on. I want to make sure I do one that belongs to me because there is a method to reason why I want to do that. Okay, so we can do this one. So here's our contract start date. So we could enter that their start date is today, okay? And then again, this will not calculate until I go down, click save, and then go up into the browser bar and refresh. And there it is, okay? So it does exactly 1 year. If you do the 3 plus 365, it's a day short, and the 366 may be a day longer. So this one is exactly accurate for getting the right expiration date or renewal date, okay? So that's how you do that. It's again, and then when they renew next year, you would just, all you'd have to do if they renew on the same day is simply change this to 10/22 and save it and refresh, and it would go out to 2023. So it becomes something you don't really have to think about to do the renewals on it, which is always a good thing. Okay. All right. So that one we're going to come back and revisit later. And then again, you can add these to your column settings so that you have, if you work with these, then you can pull them into your column settings so that you see them. And then they will automatically update as you're adding information, and then you can see them, you can search on them, whatever you need to do. Okay. All right. So that's our renewal date one. The next one that is often asked for, especially in the insurance industry, is an age, calculating the age of a contact. So I have here in my contacts, I already have a date of birth field in the record, which is what I would need, okay? And of course, I picked one that doesn't have a date of birth. So if we enter one, so we can say 3/17/ let's see. Okay. So we have, oops, it's not slashes, excuse me. If you want to type it, you use hyphens. And then it jumps, notice how it jumped to March of 1990, because you certainly don't want to sit here and scroll. So you just type the date, day, a hyphen, and then the date, and then a hyphen in the year, and it will find it in the calendar. So if I do a save and close on that. So what I want to add now is a calculation to calculate that age that will then keep up with, as the year changes, then it will automatically update the age in the record. So again, settings and customization, go to contacts, and we can type in age. This one is a calculated field. It's going to return a number, and then you can set it to return a whole number without decimal digits, okay? And the age is one that has a little, again, a little bit tricky, interesting. It uses, oh, can I see it here? There it is, floor. Floor means round down, okay? And then it's telling you, okay, when you do this, what number do you want to round down? Well, we want to build a little bit more in here, and this is where it gets a little interesting when you're trying to do this. The next thing that I want in here is not just a number because I don't have one. I want to figure out what a year, what's called a year fraction. So I come back over here. Let's see, there it is. So it returns the fraction of a year. And notice all this stuff is kind of getting shoved in here. A lot of this I'm going to delete at the end. So with the year frac, I need a start date and an end date. Well, what I need is the date of birth as the start date. So I'm just going to click here to the right of the parenthesis, in between the parenthesis and the square bracket. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find date of birth. So the fraction, I want the date of birth and then the end date. So I could take out now the start date because that's my date of birth. And then my end date is the current date. And over here, that is the get date. Okay. And so now I can take away the end date because that's the get date. And so it's get date, left and right parenthesis with the right parenthesis ending the formula there. But then I also have to get rid of this original number field that was for the floor. So what I'm ending up with here is floor, which is round down. Year fraction is the date of birth and the get date. So it's taking the date of the birth and so basically they're subtracting each other. Now here's some things that can happen when you do some of this is you might miss this last parenthesis or you might lose a square bracket. Notice that your fields are always in the square brackets. And when you go down and click save, it's going to pop up with an error message. Okay. So it's saying it's expecting a parenthesis. So then you just go and figure out, oh, I missed this one. Okay. Sometimes it takes you a little bit of time to figure out. And this is where this is different than Excel sometimes. So it takes you a little while sometimes to figure it out, but just have at it or call tech support and they will help you for sure. Okay, so now we have our age calculated field, which is based upon the date of birth. And we're going to our contact UI template. And there it is. Can't see for looking. Okay, so I can put this right underneath my date of birth. Save it. Okay. And when I go to contacts now, I have all my date of birth here, dates of birth, I guess. And if I add age to my columns, there they all are. So they're automatically calculated. And then what will happen as we pass forward to the next year, this will update itself automatically to the birth date when it crosses over their actual birth date. Okay. So that makes it easy for those of you that might be in an industry where you need to know age. Again, you don't have to calculate it. The system will calculate it and continue to update it for you. Okay. So that's that one. And hopefully you're getting some ideas and you're thinking of how you could use some of these in your database. The last one I want to do is in the leads module. And this one the purpose of this one is to allow your team, and you could do this elsewhere too, to keep up with new leads so they don't fall through the cracks, that they contact them within a reasonable amount of time. And so what we want to do is we're going to say, create a formula that says if the status, okay, is new, then we want to take the current date and subtract the creation date to get the number of days that have transpired since this record was created. And then you could create some sort of a filter to find all the ones that are greater than a number. And, so you're keeping up with that. So that's what we're going to do. So in this case, we'll use an if statement, which will show you just a little bit different approach in using an if statement. So we're going to go here and go to leads. Say age. I'm just changing this, so in case I have a field already with the same name, I would probably say new lead age. And it's going to be calculated, and it's going to return a number. And okay, so down here, we want to say that if the status is equal to new, then get date minus creation date is what happens if it's true. Okay, so if I put in if, again, if you've worked with Excel, you put your logical test in first, and then what is the value if the logical test is true, and what is the value if it's false. So our logical test here is status okay, and then status equals, and then we have to put new in quotes, okay? And here we're using single quotes and not double quotes, which is different than Excel. So I can't remember if you put the double quotes in, if it yells at you, but just kind of stick that in the back of your head, okay? Then our value of true is going to be basically the function of get date and then minus the creation date. Okay. And then all of this other stuff we now do not need. Okay. So we should be good. Okay. So we've got that. Again, we add it to our lead UI template now. Let's see here. I could put, here's the status. Here's the creation date. I'll just stick them together. Okay. Now you guys are going to laugh when you see my age of my leads. Either that or you're going to cry. And if I was a sales rep for you, you'd fire me. So if we go to leads, we have the creation date, and you can see a lot of these are really old. I'm going to resort these. And then come up here and find this. So there you go. Oh, it resorted it back. You can see these are really old. So, but it calculates the number of days. So a lot of these were created in 12/12, 2018, because that's when the database was created and all this sample data was loaded in. And then here's some just from this year. But you can see how that can help you, where again, you could then create a filter and save it for things that are, greater than so many days. So the people are keeping up with stuff and getting to those new leads. So that one I wanted to show you because it used an if statement. And so you've got, lots of, hopefully some new ideas to, if you go to our knowledge base out on, if you click the question mark and go to the knowledge base, and then you type in calculated. Someday my fingers will work. And then go to calculated fields. There's a little video here for you to watch. And then here are the different rules, okay, that you follow. And probably the biggest thing is they cannot reference other calculated fields, okay? That's the main thing. Sometimes people are trying to sort of cascade a formula over multiple fields, and you can't do that. The calculated fields are available in every module except support and the custom modules. Okay, so a year ago, they were not in projects, but they're now in projects. So if any of you are using projects and you have calculated fields, you now can use them in your projects module. So that is available. And then here are all the different operators, and here are all the different functions. Here's that date add function that was not in the drop-down list, but it does work in here. So you can look at these in comparison to what's in the drop-down list. And then you can test any other Excel functions to see if they work or not. And if you're really stuck on something, call our tech support team, because they will help you, and or they will get help for you from the dev team. I had a situation with someone a few months ago where we were creating a formula that seemed to work when we created it, but was not working consistently. And we sent it to the dev team, and they told us a modification that we had to make to the formula for it to work every single time. So yeah, if you run into a situation where it's not quite working, then definitely contact tech support and they will get you help for it. But you can see there can be a lot of power in these in helping calculate things within the database for your team and making things more accurate for them. Okay, then the last thing I wanted to show you is for this contract start date and contract renew date was to create a workflow that will look at the start date. It's not really looking at the calculation, but it will look at the start date and then create an email or an activity for the owner of the record that tells them this contract is due to be renewed in 30 days, or you could make it 60 days, whatever you want. So I just wanted to quickly show you how to do that in case you haven't played with workflows. But again, you go to your settings, and down here you have workflow automation. And then if you want to send an email, then you want to create a template for it first. Okay. I'm going to create an activity. So I'm just going to go directly to workflow processes. And I do have one already created here, but I'll add a new one. Let's see. I'm going to disable this one for the moment. Okay. And All right. So you put in the name of it. I usually suggest if you're creating an email template, you name the template that goes with the workflow the same, so you know what matches. It's just because my brain gets scrambled. And then you can put a description in. And then you set, well, what module, where is the trigger for this workflow? Well, in our case, it's in the accounts module. And then you have 3 pieces of information. First of all, the rule criteria would be where you're setting up a filter, where something is equal to something or something is here. In this case, we do not need it, okay? There is no filter that we need to create for this. So we skip this. And then the options here are, well, when is the trigger activated? Only once when you create a new record and it meets the criteria. Once when the record is created or edited and did not previously meet the rule criteria. And that's usually the most common one. Once for all existing records which meet the rule criteria, that just means it would do it for every record that currently meets the rule criteria. Then you get down here to multiple, and we want to do multiple because this renewal date is going to change every year. You're going to go in and change it to the next year and then the next year and so on. So for once wouldn't work. So what we want is multiple when an existing record is edited, which meets the rule criteria. Okay, so we're going to choose that option. And then our action is, and you have to click the plus sign. And then you're saying, okay, well, what I want to have happen is 30 days before, okay? And notice you have after and before. Well, I can't do before that calculated expiration date. It doesn't show up here, okay? So I have to base it on the contract start date, which is right here. So instead of after, I need to do it before. And I need to, whoops, I'm sorry, I need to do after. And I need to do it, say 330. This would be about 35 days ahead of time. So if I did 330 days, and notice you can have weeks, after the contract start date, then I pick, well, what do I want to have happen? Send a notification would be to send an email or add an activity. I'm going to add an activity. And then you would type in here, this is for your sales rep. And you might want to send it out 60 days just so you have time to notify folks and really get with them, you know. And then you could say you need to call them or email them, whatever you decide. The rest of this you don't need to fill in because the system will figure this out. And then assign to, you want to choose assign owner unless one person is responsible for doing all the renewals. If that person is responsible for all the renewals, then you would pick that user, okay? Otherwise, you would assign it to the owner of the record. Then down here, you want to put in the notes, the identification for who this is for, because if they just get an activity to do a renewal, they won't know who it's for. So down here, you're able to put in, you know, 30 days, please contact. Okay. All right. And then you can come down here and say, contact start date, then it's okay, contract renewal and account. Now, how do you get that information in there? So what you do, you see over here, insert fields. So I want to find the contract start date, and your custom fields will be down at the bottom part. So there's my contract start date. Here's my contract renewal. Okay. And the account name. Okay. And you could put other stuff. Now you won't have the contact person's name available because this is pointing to the account record, but they would just go look up the account in ClaritySoft and find the contact. Okay. So once you have that, you save it. All right. And so we have that, it's ready to go. Okay, it's active. Again, to trigger the workflow, you need to log out, log back in. And if I go to my accounts, and let's say I open, just want to make sure I do one for me. And if I set their, I think I figured out if I did November 30th, 2020, and then calculated. To that will trigger the workflow. So what should happen is if I go to activities, and I can go to activities actually under this. It's not there yet. I need to refresh. Okay, this is working fine before, but of course, when you want it to work, it doesn't. But what it does is it creates an activity for doing a contract renewal call. Okay. And so that shows up for the user, and then you could have a reminder set so they get a reminder about it, or you could have an email sent to them so they could, you know, instead of getting activities in their activities module, they will receive an email. They could have both. You could create an activity and you could create, oh, this would help. Where are we here? 1026, there it is. Contract renewal due in 30 days for Ego Tool and Die. Okay. So that is my trigger. Okay. And so as each day when I log in, I will see these renewal activities. And then it also will show up under the account record too. So you can see it was starting today, due tomorrow. Okay. So that's just one more level after you use the calculated fields. Even though this doesn't trigger off a calculated field, it's there. All right. So I think I've probably filled your brains with enough for the day. So let's go back here and just close out. First of all, thanks for attending. We had a nice group again today, and hopefully you learned some good things. And maybe now you're thinking about perhaps getting the calculated fields for your database if you don't have them. Where you need to be is the enterprise level. But if you talk to your account rep, sometimes, they let you get calculated fields for, just negotiate with them. So just work out something if you don't want to move all the way to the, Drew, you're asking if some if is a valid function. I think so, but you might have to talk to our tech support team about that. Or test it out yourself. Okay. So yeah, check with the tech support team. They're probably the best resource at this point. Okay. And if you don't have their number, it's right here at 888-838-7487 extension 2, or email them at support@claritysoft.com. And then again, any ideas for future webinars on certain topics that you would like to see, please let us know. We try to keep these things interesting, and we try to add new topics as new functionality becomes available in ClaritySoft. But sometimes I feel like I'm repeating the same things over and over again. And so I want to get beyond doing that. So if you have some ideas, please let us know at info@claritysoft.com. Thanks for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.